The COVID-19 pandemic has interrupted family life around the world. School closures, working remote, physical distancing. It's a lot to navigate for anyone, especially for parents. As a parent at this time, among many other COVID-related concerns, several of us are concerned about the social development of our children, mainly those who have never got the chance to even attend school physically since they began going to school. Several parents are also concerned about the quality of online learning. So today, I present to you our Health from Home session by Aditya Birla Health Insurance, where we have with us Dr. Sapna Bangar, who will shed light on the subject of parental anxiety around development of kids during this current COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Sapna Bangar is Head of Empower at the Mumbai Center. She is a specialist child and young people psychiatrist with a certificate of clinical training from the UK and a postgrad degree in psychiatry from Nair Hospital, Mumbai. She has over 20 years of vast experience working as a psychiatrist with children. Welcome to the session, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Pooja, and thank you, ABHI, for having me here. It's a pleasure. So I just wanted to, before we start, I just wanted to give a gist of how the situation has been totally unprecedented. There is no rule book which we can go back to as parents. I'm a parent myself of 2 young children, as well as being a professional. So I know how difficult this past 2 years have been. But it is also, because the past generations have never been in this situation. This whole situation is not something that we either expected to happen or that we are expecting it to ever happen again, hopefully not. But so it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel anxious. It's okay to feel, dejected, hopeless. As parents, I know the struggle that has been there, where we are getting pulled in all directions, especially the anxiety around how the prolonged school closures are going to have the effect on young children, how they're going to be socially developing, how this skill gap, learning gap, there's so much to navigate around here. But also in that situation, I wanted to point out, that it's not been all doom and gloom. It's been that we've collectively found some creative ways of, making the situation work for us. As parents, I know how various, in the parents groups, as professional advice that we give, that this situation, we've almost risen to this situation and found creative ways of dealing with it. So I'm hoping that this session in some way also helps along the way of allaying the anxiety that parents might have about their children, in either identifying some of the risk factors, identifying the red flags, and also coming up with solutions which might work for them.
Correct. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your introductory words. We have a few questions that we have been hearing and receiving around this subject. So we'd like to begin with that, asking you each question one after the other. So to start with, one of the most common questions we receive is that, what are the most commonly faced problems that children are these days going through due to these current pandemic restrictions?
I think one of the things that this restrictions, the physical distancing, the social distancing, all that has caused is that how do you keep young children at home who have this natural, energy that they need to vent out. So most of the parents who approach me with younger children is that they're excessively bored, they are hyperactive, they don't know how to vent out their energy. And what is coming out is that there are temper tantrums, there are behavioral problems, they are not able to navigate this clinging behavior. This is constant, being behind parents for everything. That stage of where they are supposed to be independently functioning is not happening. So there is a delay in their gaining independence as children. As you were previously saying that, there are some children who've never been to school, and what that brings about in the social development phase. There are sleep disturbances. Children are not sleeping late till night because they're not getting any physical activity. There is screen addiction, for example, because all that they do is all the time be on the screen. They have working parents. How do you keep your child entertained all the time? So the best option is to just give a screen in their hand, and that's where they're getting addicted to the screens. That is for the younger age group. I think for teenagers, it's even more difficult. There's a time when they are supposed to be, peers are the most important part of their life. They have been cut out from their peers. They are stuck at home with parents whom possibly they don't like, because none of the teenagers like their parents, but they're stuck at home with them 24/7. There is no lack of, there's lack of space because of that. And what is coming across is a lot of frustration. I see a lot of teenagers with anxiety, with depression, with increased substance abuse for that matter. I know of children who have been raiding their parents' cabinets to get alcohol just out of sheer boredom. There are also people, unfortunately, who have there is an increase in suicidal thoughts and acts as well in this age group, because there is, it just doesn't seem to end. It's just when we are getting used to living in a certain way, there are some changes. So there is a lot of hopelessness coming in as well in the teenagers, saying, when is it ever going to end? Because all their well-laid plans have gone haywire. They were looking forward to going to universities. They had some plans about, their future, and they've all been put on hold without any outlet. So there are a lot of problems that are now coming across because of this prolonged period of, social isolation, being stuck at home.
Understood, Doctor. It's currently a very sensitive and critical situation that we are going through. And especially with teenagers, we completely understand what you're saying. So when it comes to managing this behavior of children at home, of kids at home these days, how do you do that, especially the social as well as both COVID precautionary behavior? And more importantly, how do you handle younger kids emotionally? If, say, all elders in the house are COVID positive, which is being seen in this current wave, and plus when all elders are isolated separately in the house, how do you manage younger kids in an emotional way?
Yeah, that is another, now, especially in the third wave, that has been so common that, a lot of elders in the family have been diagnosed with COVID. And what do you do with a younger child? Because they don't understand the intricacies of social distancing, for example. How do you keep a child away from their mom or dad who has been tested positive? So coming back to a few pointers about initially what we can do for children without COVID. So I'll come to the part with when they are diagnosed with COVID, the parents or elders. But some tips is, for younger children, especially when their world has turned topsy-turvy, when they don't know what is happening. Half the times they are like, okay, they're just following orders. For example, they were supposed to be going to school. Suddenly they are at home, might not know what is happening. Parents are at home suddenly. So, it's all very, very unbalanced for them at the moment. So having some kind of routine and structure helps. And it is very important to have them because it is, at least they know the predictability of their day. For example, if they get up at a certain time every day, they know that at least that is something that is, that is within their hands. So as I'm saying, there are various things that are out of control, but, even the little bit of control that we can get back helps. So having a routine, having a certain, waking up time, having certain sleep times, I tell parents a lot that even if children are younger, get them to help in chores, because that gives them, it's a win-win situation. You can get them to help you out in chores. Second thing, that it gives them a sense of self-esteem of achieving something. You see young children, if you give them something, even simple things like, you water the plants every day, or you fill a bottle of water for me today, and that is your job. If you give them that responsibility, they will follow it diligently, and they get a sense of self-esteem building with that as well, saying, oh, this is my job and I've been doing it very well. And it might be age appropriate. They can be, even simple things. You can give really young children some work to do, which is age appropriate as well. So that will also keep them busy during the day. It also helps to have few but some rules which they need to follow, because you can't tell them you can't do A, B, C, D, E in this current situation, because it's already quite difficult. But at least some rules that have been agreed between parents to say, okay, in our house we do not watch TV after 9 o'clock, or you're not allowed to beat anyone up in the house, however angry you are. So just 2 or 3 rules that are agreed by adults, but the children need to know that these are rules and they need to be followed. I think messy play is a great way of keeping children busy. I tell my parents, you don't need to have an extremely tidy house. You need to have a clean house, but having a messy house in this time is fine. Just give them some, papers, glue, give them some craft activities to do, give them kid-safe scissors, and that will actually keep them out of your hair for 1 or 2 hours when you are busy on an important call, or you have a work from home meeting that you cannot miss and you cannot be disturbed.
Right.
In the evening, for example, I just say put on some music and dance, just have some fun. You don't need space for that. You don't need, but that will also let go of the excessive energy that these kids have. Simple activities like doing some jumping together as a family. It helps bonding. It will help you as a parent let go of your physical exercise, having some bit of physical exercise as well. So these things are little things that can treasure hunts. That is another way I just so if I, for example, know that I have something that is important for an hour, I will just plan my day accordingly and say from 3 to 4, you're not supposed to disturb me, but I set up a game for them to play at during that time. So having a little bit of planning, organization, and getting the kids to, do something that is fun for them as well helps in these situations.
Right, Doctor. Very rightly said, routine building and bonding over activities could be something, at least my key takeaways from here to help cope better in such situations. Thank you for that, Doctor. So one question that rattles parents emotionally even more is that if my own child tests COVID positive, then what is the best way that I can educate my kids, first of all, in this, especially younger kids? And then how do we help them deal with it emotionally?
As parents, when you realize that your child has tested positive, it can be extremely worrisome. It can be extremely anxiety provoking for you as a parent. So my take on it would be that you need to calm down as a parent before you discuss this with your child, because children are extremely intuitive. So they pick up on unsaid emotions as well. So if you are very worried or hassled or, not in a calm manner, they will pick up on those emotions, and that will get them worried even more. So once you allay your fears as much as you can, in terms of if you want to talk to the doctor and clear your doubts as a parent, and then you go and deal with your child and tell them, I always say that have a safe space to discuss this with them. Be honest. So that is the prime thing. You can say, I don't know. That is completely fine, because you're not an expert as a parent to know the details about it. They might have a few questions for which you have no answers. You can just say, hey, I don't know. Let's find out together about those answers. Do not give false assurances. Do not tell them that, oh, this is never going to happen. You have to, in a age appropriate manner, explain to them that, actually this might happen, but if it happens, we will deal with it. Oh, you will not get fever. You will not get cough. Don't say things that, might not, just because it is coming from a place of worry, because you as parent just want to make them feel better. That is the instinct that you have as a parent. So you will be you want to just tell them nothing is going to go wrong. You will be fine, which is great. But also do not say things that might not in the end come out to be true. So be mindful about how you discuss this with your child. Also, the main, another big takeaway in this current scenario of social media is absolutely tell them to stay away sometimes from negative news, because if you start reading the news again and again, it, and that can be valid for you as a parent as well, because there is so much negative news that is going around, and that is just not going to be helpful for you. Instead, give them some websites that are valid. For example, the WHO website, or the Center of Diseases and Control for Children, so the CDC website. So something like that, where all the information is given, and which is valid information, which is scientific information. So give them some valid sources of information, especially the elder ones, because they're going to, the teenagers, or the ones who have their phones with them, are going to go and find out about other things. And take the lead from your child, because there are some children who are extremely curious, will want to know many questions. There are some who will get overwhelmed with the information. So my advice would be, the child, your child the best, and take the cue and the lead from them, and also give them some space to ask those questions that they might be, harboring with them.
Correct. In this age of digital information being available so vastly, it becomes very difficult, but of course, we have to try our best. One more question that we see, especially around schools closing now, is which might reopen very soon, but one question that we see commonly is, what has been the impact of these school closures on the development of children, especially the social development of children, and what can we do to make the best out of the situation?
All parents are concerned for the gap that has happened in a child's development in the current scenario. Right. I think professionals are also, because there is no long-term study about it, but professionals are also, that is a question that is playing on their mind as well. What we know so far is, yes, because there are varied populations, there is certainly a learning gap that has happened in many children, because as you can predict, we have busy parents. Parents are not, possibly it's not possible for them to monitor them minute to minute online schooling. They are left, quite a few children are left to, get on with their school by themselves, because this is not something that we predicted would happen. We were not supposed to be playing parents as well as teachers for our kids for 2 years. So obviously, and then children are getting distracted from the online schooling, because even that is not a natural way for them to study. So we have observed that there are certain gaps that have happened in the learning in many children. It is also that, as you mentioned in the beginning, there are some children who have not even been to school yet, being in the second grade maybe, but never actually visited or had a physical school attendance so far. So there is a lot of social gap. They have not interacted much with their age group people. So, those peer relationships have not formed. Learning those social cues of waiting for your turn, taking turns, sharing and caring for your, your age group, fighting with people, and learning to, that it's okay to fight, it's okay to get up, and it's okay to get hurt, and then navigate those friendships have not happened at all. So they have missed out completely on the same age peer group interactions that have happened. And also, obviously, physical health has impacted as well, because they're staying at home. There is hardly any exercise that most kids will have. And working towards independence is the other thing, because as parents, obviously, you're navigating some of these things for them. You're helping them out. They are not learning. They have learned to get dependent on you for the last 2 years, for example, because mom, dad, grandparents, somebody's around to, if they are in doubt, they will have some adult to obviously go and solve their doubt. So they're not trying to do it themselves. So these are the the common developmental gaps that we are seeing in children. Having said that, I think children are extremely resilient lot. They bounce back much better than say adults. So they might have a period of readjustment, but they will bounce back.
That's very good to know. And most of us even discuss this as that kids are really resilient. And actually, that is the silver lining to the slightly gray cloud that we are seeing right now.
I just wanted to add, because I didn't add about what we can do to,
right,
that little bit of whatever we can do. I think having play dates virtually is a great idea, even if they are not having, physical play dates might not be possible, but even having and letting them get on with it, because I've seen that happen where kids, they just navigate themselves very well, even in the virtual world, but they're sitting there and chatting with their own age group children and, discussing their own interest. But even having that, giving them that opportunity outside school hours to be able to, socially interact with their peer group is extremely important. Taking more of an effort as parents to make sure that they're following social cues. So even schools are now caught on to that, and they have, set of rules in school that they need to follow virtually. So making sure that you do not speak out of turn, making sure that you wait for your turn. So, as parents also, parents and teachers need to work together to make sure that these gaps do not become, too large. So in whatever way we can, I think it's great to get these things going.
Great, absolutely. Moving on to now a question that parents have for themselves, right? They often ask us, what's the best way in which we can, as parents, manage, especially the working parents, how can we manage the work from home routine with having to balance so many roles, especially when they're staying in an extended family all together under one roof?
Absolutely. That's a personal question as well, because I think none of us ever thought that we would, if someone 2 years ago would have said that, as parents, as working parents, you had to be cooking, you had to be cleaning, you have to do the household chores, you have to be working full time, and you have to look after your children, not just there, but also be responsible completely for their academics. People would have said we are all gone crazy, but that is what our world is currently. What happens with work from home is that you just need to become a little bit more fluid with your routine, and everyone has an individual timetable that works. So, for example, at the end of the day, you have to finish your deadline. So my advice to parents is that doesn't matter if you do it at 9 o'clock in the morning or whether you do it at, say 7 o'clock in the evening, so long as you meet your deadline. But if you want to sit with your child in the morning for their online school and complete your work in the evening, that is completely fine, and it's up to you, so long as you're not missing the deadline. So having a little bit of flexibility and fluidity to, your routine as working from home might help. Having a priority task list for your day. You can't do everything. Do not expect yourself to do everything. You're not superhumans. We are all normal humans. So whatever can wait for tomorrow, this is A, B, and C that cannot wait till tomorrow. There is some things that could wait for tomorrow, and there could be some things that could wait for next week. So setting up those tasks is important. Having some time for non-work activities, because that is one thing that most parents have come back to me. Even a lot of advice people ask me is they feel that work has taken over their life because they're working all the time. It feels like that, at least, because they're working from home, they get calls from work at odd hours. They have to finish deadlines at odd hours. And it's like, I'm just working all the time. I just don't have any time for myself. So when I'm saying fluid, there's still within the remit of, certain boundaries that you pick for yourself. For example, it is like after 9 o'clock in the night, maybe I am not picking up work calls, or after 8 o'clock, I'm not picking. So whatever works for you. But there should be a deadline for, when your work ends and your personal life starts, and then stick to it. It is okay, I am not picking up calls after that, or there's, Sundays are my days off. because especially if you have young children, it is extremely important that you give them some quality time as well. And when I mean quality time, it is that uninterrupted attention that they require. It could be 10 minutes. It's not that you have to spend the whole day with them, but even those 10-15 minutes where you just shut off your laptop, you put the phone away and sit with them and just listen to them works wonders for, kids that age. It's also, I always advise my clients to get rest for work. It is a big thing that in the morning, if you get rest for work, and then at a certain time you get into your work, your home clothes, emotionally, mentally, it gives you that shut off time. You give yourself the permission to say, hey, I am off work now. I'm not I'm not doing any more work. You can feel that relaxation come into you once you get out of your work clothes into your home clothes. And that used to happen when we had physical office, for example, where you left office and you almost mentally shut off from work, which is not happening at this time. Have work-free conversations with other people. So it's not like at the moment, I think a lot of people are just having work-related conversations with their colleagues, or the rest of the time is spent doing chores or but if you have friends, even if it's once a week call with your friends where you're discussing fun things, something unrelated to work, because that shut off time of doing something that is personal is very important. And last but not the least, learn to switch off and learn to not compete with others, because everyone is in a different boat. Because another of a lot of my clients ask me, they feel left out as parents, because there might be other people who are single, who might not have that many responsibilities, and are doing much more than what they might be doing. But that's completely fine. Everyone has their own shoes to fill. So, if you have little kids to look after, and as you're saying, if you have a joint family, you need elders who need to be looked after. Maybe at this point in time, you might not be able to compete with other colleagues who might, not have that many responsibilities, but you don't have to beat yourself about it.
Correct, Doctor. In fact, a few of the key takeaways that I'm also going to take from this is define good boundaries for work and life, which is very critical, and not to over expect from us as parents, because we all are humans. All of us have limitations. So not to go on that guilt trip. So I'm going to just ask you a question that's a little related to this, which is some parents often ask, how do you get over the guilt as a parent of feeling that maybe you are letting your child down, even if you're not? Sometimes that guilt because of people around you, maybe they're saying some things because of which you go on that guilt trip yourselves. So how does a parent get over that? Or is it even right in the first place to think like this?
There's no question of right or wrong. It's like whether you can do it or not do it. I think it inherently comes as parents that, you feel that you are letting your children down, especially in these times, because I know a lot of parents who are working, both parents working, who are not able to give that much of, attention to their children on online school. And that cannot be helped, because they have work to do. They have, they have their own limitations. But I think the mantra is to keep telling yourself that you're doing the best that you can. It's okay to feel, that at times question yourself that, is there anything more that I can do, or, and then, as I said, if it's possible to do something, it's possible to, set up a priority list and give your child a little bit more attention. As I said, 10 minutes. I always tell my parents 10 minutes of your time in a day. The utensils can wait, the mopping can wait, the cleaning up can wait. Doesn't have to be a completely mess-free house. But just sitting with your child for 10 minutes every day is important, because that is not going to come back. But that is all that you have to, as parents. Yes, I have had times when I felt, oh my God, my child needs me and I'm not there, because they were navigating something online, couldn't understand what is happening in school, and came running to me, and I'm like, no, I can't talk to you right now. And they started crying. But that is, as I said, that is what parenthood is all about. You feel guilty, but then stop right there and ask yourself, was that something that you could have helped? No, you couldn't. And then move on.
Absolutely, doctor. Absolutely. In fact, all parents come with their own sets of challenges, but most often than not, we hear that managing a teenager is one of the most challenging jobs that a parent has to do. So, in this era, when should a parent be worried about handling a teenager, especially when it's learn from home, work from home, their social development is not to the optimum? So how do you understand that right now is the time for me to be worried?
I think that's a good question, especially for teenagers, because usually, anyways, there is a delay in seeking help for teenagers because we believe that this is normal teenage behavior. For example, banging doors, being irritable, answering in monosyllables, not talking to you as parents, saying rude things to you as parent, isolating themselves in a room. All these are very normal teenage behaviors. So, a lot of parents then say, we didn't realize that this is what was happening. We didn't realize that this child, our child was undergoing anxiety or depression or something more sinister, because we just thought it was he or she was being a normal teenager. But certain red flags to be aware about is if you see, persistent crying spells in a child, if you see that they're not interacting much, not just with you as parents or family, but also with their peers. So, distancing themselves from their peers. So if they are avoiding going out or meeting virtually at this point in time, where they're making plans, and suddenly you realize that this, your child is not even joining in virtual meetings or with friends, withdrawing from friends, social isolation. Sometimes it is also about, when they are, there is a complete change in their behavior. So, or their personality, as we say, somebody who's extremely bubbly, happy-go-lucky, and, talkative teenager suddenly becomes very quiet. There are changes in sleep habits, and, so either they're sleeping too much or they're not sleeping at all. There are changes in their eating habits. So either emotional overeating happens, or, they don't eat at all, and there is a considerable loss of weight, for example, where everyone is asking what's wrong, and you realize that this child has lost, or this person has lost a lot of weight. And some red herrings, like talking about, not having any motivation, or not talking about the future at all. I have a lot of teenagers who, parents say, oh, he was really excited to go to university. He had made these plans, and suddenly they're like, oh, I don't know whether I want to go. I am not sure. So that kind of disinterest, the lack of making plans for the future. Sometimes, teenagers have a very sarcastic way sometimes of saying things, but they say some relevant things like, I don't think there'll be a difference if I'm here or not here tomorrow. But those kind of, those are herrings where we are looking out for something where they feel that they might, even if they're not here tomorrow, nothing will change. Because they don't express, say, for example, they won't directly express thoughts of wanting to kill themselves or wanting to, but something like that, if they start even showing some indication of that, these are just some of the, factors. Sometimes they start, as I said, drinking alcohol from, if they've started raiding their parents. I recently had 2 or 3 kids who suddenly came to light just because of the fact that the parents realized, that their stash is getting smaller and smaller, and that is when they realized that this child has been raiding their cabinets. And then the child said, actually, that's the only thing that makes me happy at the moment, because otherwise I just feel numb all the time. So, those are some of the things to keep an eye out for.
Got it, doctor. Got it. Like, this is an unprecedented situation, so even parents usually get confused as to how do we deal with children. So I'm sure this answer is going to help them a lot. One question I think which you have sort of touched upon in the previous questions, but if you could elaborate a little more on this. Quite a few parents ask us that more and more children are losing focus because it's online learning right now. They get distracted very easily because, of course, they're studying on the screen. So a lot of avenues are available for them. So how do we make sure that, or how do we help them to get, to be attentive again, to reduce their distractions? Rather, how do we help them on an overall basis because of this issue?
This is more of, not just a problem of younger children. Obviously, younger children have lesser of an attention span than as you grow older, teenagers will have a longer attention span. But to know for a fact that children are going to get distracted because they have a shorter attention span, and to know that the online world has too many distractions. So you can easily, for example, go and start browsing the net. It's easy to just go and start playing games. It's easy to just start chatting on the side with some of your friends. So keeping that in mind, knowing the limitations, there are certain steps that we can use as parents. One, I say, what is very important is even the physical space of having where you set up the study table, for example, especially for younger children. If you keep all distractions away, it is otherwise, if you have a toy lying around, or there is clutter on the table where they're planning to study, or there's food or a snack lying around, it's very easy to get distracted. So take away the distractions as much as possible. Within giving the remit of practicality, obviously, I know that not everyone might have the luxury of space in their house, so they will have to make do with, but even if it's a corner, it's a small corner, but having a designated space for study, to say, even if it's in a room, but one table, this is your study table, and this is where you study. Having to face the wall, I think sometimes it's very important. If possible, as I said, you're facing a blank wall, it is easier not to get distracted. If at the same time you keep a young child facing a window, it's very, very easy for them to just, start staring outside the window and get curious and see who's going where and what is happening. So physical space as much as possible, having a clutter-free designated study area, which is free of distractions, is helpful. Giving them regular breaks is very, very important, because you can't expect a child who's 6, 7, 8 to be sitting for, say, 2-3 hours at a stretch without getting distracted. So even if it is, and it is important that when they have the break, they have that movement break. So you make them get up from that space, make them jump, run, get that adrenaline going. So that they are, because teenagers, for example, you can imagine, even in the break, they're sitting and doing something. I'm trying to finish my homework. I'm trying to, they have quite a few excuses to give. But to make sure, as parents, what time is their time, break time, and make sure you go and nudge them to say, hey, I know it's a break time, just come out of that room and have a proper break, rather than just sitting on the screen at that time. Following a schedule, because as I can't reiterate how important it is to follow that schedule for children, that they know. For example, having a whiteboard where they're written down what to expect, because sometimes what happens with younger children is, if they don't know that it's going to be a 2-hour or a 3-hour class, at the beginning only they start getting distracted. Instead of that, if they know that this is one class and after that you're going to have a break, they are more likely to pay attention. So having something like a written timetable, schedule, where they can also go and check what happens, or they're aware of what their day looks like, is important. And then having those conversations with children is also very important, because if they are, you see that when, for example, if children are started to feel hopeless, a lot of children are getting bored now with this situation. They're like, we want to go back to school. This is too much. We can't even, because in the beginning there was a novelty about it. It's like, okay, we're getting to stay at home. It's going to be fun time. And now they've realized that it's no longer fun. It is like, the boredom has set in, and there is a lot of lack of motivation in most children now to say, I can't do this anymore, or they're getting easily distracted. So keeping that enthusiasm going, and as parents to keep their hope up that this is, okay, we are going to be starting school soon, giving them some kind of things to look forward to helps in this situation.
Absolutely, doctor. In fact, even for us adults, getting distracted is very easy in this day and age. So we can imagine what with kids, right? So, yeah, one of the questions that I'm going to move on to now is one of the grimmest questions that we have seen because of media being so widespread. It's very easy for kids to hear of and see, in fact, even death and dying in close proximity in this COVID era. So, how is the best way that we can explain this entire situation to them without ensuring that they don't get affected in a negative way?
I think that is one of the most unfortunate, things that have come out, that young children have come across death at an age that, you really hope they wouldn't have. But everyone has lost, someone. It could be a colleague, it could be a family member, it could be a friend, or you hear about someone at least who's passed away, and that is definitely something that percolates down to children. So it is extremely important to handle this sensitively, because otherwise it's going to stay with them for a very, very long time. So, for example, if you want to break bad news in the terms of if there's been a death in the family, it's always good to do it in a safe space. So taking the child to a calm environment, just you and the child, or just the parents and the child, or children in that case, being at the same level as a child, an eye level of the child, giving them some safety, comforting either their favorite toys, or comforting blankets, something that they feel safe about, when they can carry that with them, and being very honest and open about it. So sometimes we, as parents, the instinct is to hide things from them, or to gloss it over, and just give them the bare minimum. But children need to know. They might not need to know the intricate, grim details, but they need to know in clear terms that granddad has gone and he's never coming back. So that message needs to go clear and loudly. Also giving them the space to vent out their feelings, because one of the things that happens, especially with young children, is a common phenomena called magical thinking, is where, for example, I had a young child who lost their father, and that child was 6 years old, and I remember just talking to him, and he said, "You know what, doctor, I had ice cream that day, which I was not supposed to have, and God punished me in that way." So, and no one had spoken to him about it. So it's so difficult. Imagine a child carrying that weight of that. So there is a lot of guilt in those children, where they somehow feel that they are responsible because they were naughty. Most children, younger children, will feel, oh, this is a punishment I got because I was naughty. So allaying their fears, getting them to talk about it is very, very important. Also, they try to hide it from each other. Parents don't want their child to feel lost, or they don't want. So, parents will be grieving in silo. The child doesn't want to hurt the parents, so the child will be, dealing in silo with their grief. But it is very important even for parents to show their emotions to the child. It could be that, hey, mom is really sad because she lost her dad. It's okay to cry in front of the child as well. You don't need to hide your emotions from the child, because the child will then feel comfortable to share their emotions as well, and talk about it, and together grieve and come out of it. Because it also needs to have a closure to the grief. Because I always tell my kids and parents to do something nice about the person who's gone. So going through albums may be painful, but it is important. So you look at not just the bad bits, but you also look at the happy memories from the past, and remember that person as somebody you had a very good time with, and then almost, because that is important for us to be able to grieve, mourn, and then move forward. Otherwise we are going to get stuck in that situation.
Correct, absolutely. This natural instinct of parents to shield their kids from anything negative is what sometimes makes them not openly and honestly communicate with the kids. I think if they do more of that in a sensitive way,
yeah, because the intention is right. The intention is always absolutely to shield and protect your children, but it shouldn't be that your child is then shielding their parents as well, because that is bound to happen.
Correct, absolutely. Very well said. One more question that parents often have is that now, because the online world is so open to the kids and because you're learning, it's all accessible to them. So how do I make sure that my kids' activity online is fine and that they are safe and they're not being targets to some issues online?
Very pertinent question, a worry for all parents, because nowadays I think the children are more tech savvy than parents, because they know ways of getting around things. So how much ever you try to control it, they will find ways. So the best way to educate them, for example, especially the older children. For younger children, how you deal with it is a little bit different. You set up parental controls. You make sure that only certain age group, even if it's a cartoon or that only certain, if there's a younger kid, then that age appropriate controls are set on that device that you're giving the child, because it's not possible to constantly be there to monitor what your child is doing. But random checks are extremely important. So don't let your child sit for hours together in a room not knowing what they're doing. So make sure that once in a while you just pop in to see and what they're doing, so they know that parents might just come in any time. And the main thing is educating them about what is absolutely no, and telling them the risk, because this generation, for example, you cannot say you cannot do this because I am telling you to do. That doesn't work. So you tell them the risk about how dangerous it is to share personal information online. How sharing photos is not okay, how sharing your date of birth or your location is not okay, or giving simple things like which school you go to strangers is not okay, and explain to them the risk involved in this. And once they know and they are on board, then they're less likely to get into habits which are unhealthy. So there are certain things is very important to say. And again, the rules have to be something that are consistent, and you can't say you can't go on A, B, and C at all, especially for older children. So you give them the information and gradually give the control as well into their hands in an age appropriate manner. As I said, for younger children, absolute control has to be with parents. As they start going to pre-teens and teens, it's a give and take. You start giving them a little bit of control, and with due monitoring and due intelligence, go once in a while and telling them there's nothing to hide about it, because that is where the trust is broken. But you tell your teenagers also, once in a while, I'm going to check what you're doing online, I'm going to see your browsing history. Absolutely don't do it behind their back, because that will break their trust. But I tell my parents, be very open to them, because explain to them that it's not that you're trying to be privy to what they're doing. It's coming from a place of concern where you want to make sure that they're safe online.
Absolutely, Doctor. Very well said. In this information age, that drawing that balance is very critical. Moving on to the last question, Doctor. We've heard that schools might reopen soon. So once the schools reopen, often parents ask us that how can they ease kids into attending physical school again, and especially younger kids who started going to school in the pandemic era, so have only seen school as you see it online. They don't know the concept of physical school per se. So how do parents ease kids into this entire activity again?
I think it's very important to prep children because they've had 2 years of staying at home, being around their parents. As I was mentioning earlier, like, the clinging behavior has escalated where they are constantly clinging to their parents because they have, parents are accessible 24/7. They are like, they're just there if they need anything. So it's extremely important to start having those conversations. In fact, some ways of doing it is showing them the photographs of school, for example, showing them or taking them on a virtual tour of the school if it's available, or even if, like, school classrooms, showing them what it looks like, talking to them about what it might be like, okay, you're going to take a tiffin, you're going to take a water bottle, you're going to, go to school, mom is going to pick you up, dad is going to drop you, all those things, what it's going to look like is important. I've also at times advocated that, if it's possible, just go around school, to show them what it actually looks like. You can just go in a car for a round, but you can take your kid around and show them, that this physical place exists. Like, it's not in somewhere online, it is actually a place, and that this is what it looks like from the outside. So slowly getting them, mentally prepared is extremely important. I also sometimes tell that, if the child is extremely clingy, get used to the fact that, you might not be available, even if it is 10 minutes of, because I know that there are certain, like, if it's a mom who's not working and being there all the time, the child might not have, even that ability to separate for a little bit. Because of the current situation, I advise them that, you could just go and be inside the room for 10 minutes where you're not accessible to them if they need you. Or you could go to a friend's house in the same building or something like that, if it's possible and it's safe to do so, where they are then getting used to the idea of mom, or, dads are usually at work, or even if dads are working from home, but getting that going in terms of not being there in front of their eyes 24/7 is important. So getting them to prep for these things is important. And as I said, like, I always tell my parents to make them make school sound like fun, because then that is what they're going to look forward to. It's like, hey, you have a playground, you're going to play football, you're going to do these, A, B, and C, whatever they are, even if it's little things, but you're going to get to meet your friends. So something to the fact that they can make their children look forward to it rather than dread it. That is the main aim.
Absolutely, Doctor. Thank you so much for answering all of these questions for us. This was a very, very informative session. In fact, in conclusion, drawing from what all you have said, just for our audience, staying at home, these social distancing recommendations, etc., may feel like an inconvenience, especially when parenting, but it's the best way right now to, protect our family, friends, neighbors, especially people who may be vulnerable. And it is up to us parents at this point in time to educate our kids, help them deal with this pandemic, make the best out of the situation, and then ease them into normal life whenever that begins. Right. So, Doctor, what would you then like to tell us in conclusion to wrap up the whole session?
My only takeaway is, we are all doing the best that we can. We all have, different burdens to carry, literally. And always keep that in mind, that this is not something that we ever expected in our life to happen. So it's an unprecedented situation. It is something that was totally unexpected, and it throws a curveball all the time. As I was saying, you get used to working from home, and then you have to go to office, and then when you get used to working in office, the third wave comes along. So it's not been an easy curve for anybody. The journey has been, full of ups and downs, and everyone is trying to do their best. So it is more about, and also rather than, because there are certain things that are beyond our control. There is no way that we can control them. So stop thinking or worrying about them, because that is no way that you can change the situation that you're in. The only thing that you can change is how do you, your outlook towards it, and how you can cope with the situation that you're in, and make it work for you the best that you can by being creative in our little ways about dealing with these situations. But as I said, children are extremely resilient. Children are able to bounce back from adversities much more than we are. So here's hoping that, we come out of this in a much, much positive way, and we know how to deal with it. It can't get any worse.
Correct. Thank you so much, Dr. Bangar, for taking the time out to enlighten us on this critical subject of concern. I'm sure all parents watching us right now will be very, very, at this stage, will be equipped with a lot of tips, equipped with a lot of information on how to make the best out of the situation at this stage. And a very thank you to our audience for attending yet another session of Health from Home by Aditya Birla Health Insurance. Stay tuned to Active Living for many more such informative sessions. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.